few hundred people, whereas other substations,
This. Recording in progress. Okay, good. That's what we like to hear. Hello, welcome. I'm so happy to see everyone's faces. I'm so happy to see friends near and far and friends of friends. And I'm just happy to be doing this on this first Monday of post-daylight savings darkness, when things seem to be getting and are getting so dark so early. I'm going to do a brief little introduction. I'm Rachel Cloud Adams. I am the editor of Lines and Stars and L&S Press, which since 2014 has published chapbooks, poetry chapbooks every year. Everyone that is joining us tonight as a reader is a previous chapbook author. So it's really special for me, and I'm sure for others, to have everyone together like this. This is great. And thankfully we can do it through everyone's favorite means of communication, Zoom. It's great to be able to connect with people that aren't just in DC or Baltimore. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to start, we're just going to go chronologically, starting with our 2014 chapbook author and ending with our 2020 chapbook author. Our 2021 chapbook is currently in process. But first I want to read, just to get, as people settle in and get their hot cocoa and such. I want to read a little bit from one of my favorite books of small poems, which is Winter Morning Walks by Ted Kooser, who I love a lot. I think this book has a lot to do with resilience and beauty in small moments. He wrote all of these little poems in response to having had cancer. This was like in the late 90s. And he wrote these in the form of postcards that he sent to his friend, Jim Harrison, who I believe was also a poet. I looked for the November 8th poem, but it starts on November 9th. So I'm going to read the November 9th poem, and then we will begin with Iris. November 9th, rainy and cold. The sky hangs thin and wet on its clothesline. A deer of gray vapor steps through the foreground, under the dripping lichen-rusted trees. Halfway across the next field, the distance, or can that be the future, is sealed up in tin like an old barn. Pardon me 1 second while I get something necessary. Just a minute, I'll be right back. I'm back. I don't know if you could hear me running. These are the bios for the poets, so essential. We're going to start out with our 2014 L&S Press chapbook contest winner, Iris McCloughan, who is a writer and artist in New York City. They were a winner of the 2018 Stanley Kunitz Prize from American Poetry Review and were named a finalist in nonfiction for Best of the Net 2020. Work has appeared in Jubilat, Juked, Gertrude, Denver Quarterly, Queen Mob's Tea House, and others. And their collection, Noah Harbor, was L&S Press's first chapbook publication back in 2014. Please welcome Iris.
Hello. Thanks so much, Rachel, for organizing this, and thanks for publishing so many great small books. I am going to read one, maybe two poems from a current project, which is, it's called After the Wild Iris, and it is a book-length response to Louise Glick's The Wild Iris, which is a book that I've loved for a long time. It's actually where I chose my name from. And over the past few years, as I returned to it, I kind of realized a growing like sense that the book, which was written in the early 90s, like a lot of the ideas in it, which are about the kind of cycle of the seasons and life and death and rebirth, feel increasingly unconnected to our contemporary climate moment. And so I wanted to write, I began to wonder what it would be like to write a book that used some of the same themes and frames, but that would attempt to hold some of the complexity of being a human alive at this time in history. And so I have a manuscript. I've written one poem for each poem in her book. And the poems are formatted so that they can each be read top to bottom and left to right, but also they are kind of fragmented, which presents multiple reading pathways through the poem. And to me, this is kind of a formal gesture to being a trans person, like holding complexity and bothness at the same time. So I'm going to read one poem, and then I'm going to go through and I'll read one of the kind of suggested pathways through the poem, which will give a little bit of a different emphasis. So this one is called After Retreating Wind, and it begins with an epigraph from Blick's poem, Retreating Wind. When I made you, I loved you. I made what I loved. You took your space at the edge. I dreamt I was a garden 40 years in the future, my thoughts fixed on what palette of bounty I want, roses, snapdragons, leaves. I am trying to remake the bed of earth my mother's parents fenced into being, my blanket of air not so blue. I thought I had all I needed, more time, an idea, fire distant, a signal we had no way to decode, written in language older than us, more material. Then the foundation of the world rearranged. We fled our houses temporarily, then flight was permanent. We get farther, we see more clearly. What some used to call soul should be minute by now, revealed to be nothing but dust, stirred by the workings of the great circumstantial machines. We are small, and though we are being ground up, we still sit at sunset, talking as if every gift awaits us. We revel in the expansion of spring, the new green note embedded in the scent of autumn. We cannot help wanting more, so we make what we love. We find, fill each other in the garden. We see edges browning, moving toward us. We know the shape a life takes. We know there will be stillness soon. No voices speaking in human language. We receive this gift. It is beautiful, and we know it will extinguish us. But look, it is November. You are not wearing a coat. I watch summer birds fly from birch to apple tree, and here with you, I can almost ignore it. I made, I loved. At the edge, I dreamt. 40 years in the future, what palette of roses, snapdragons, lilies to remake. The bed of earth, my blanket of air not so blue. I thought I had all, more time, fire distant, no way to decode. Then the foundation of the world rearranged our houses. We get farther, we see more. What some used to call soul, minute, nothing but the workings of the circumstantial machines. And though we are ground up, we still sit talking as if we revel in the expansion of spring. The new note embedded in autumn. We cannot help, so we make love. We fill each other. We see moving toward us a life, and we know there will be stillness soon. No voices in human language, and we know it will extinguish us. It is November. You are not wearing a coat. Birds fly from birch to apple tree and almost ignore it. I'll read one more. This one is called After Midsummer, and the epigraph is, how can I help you when you all want? I try to listen and I despair. How can I help when all around me is lack of shade, dry heat, air agitated, summer pushed into this new register, a knot so tangled, thrill of momentum sloping down toward the cliff, valley below bright with fruit, the last of its kind. Each calls out its need to be consumed. Even now, hunger marries us to joy. Stained red in the sun, our lips speak absolutes. We are here. We have done everything but what could deliver us. We taste each berry. We discard the green stem. Finally, the last berry split. A pity. The last one, imperfect. I have been practicing inhabiting body, wearing a skin of loss. I am ready, want to move onward. I place what is now unique on my tongue. I eat the last berry, remove this shining facet of diversity. Now we are limited to fire, sign of consumption rising in the sky, the new sun. And one more pass through that one. I listen and I despair. How can I help when all is lack of air? Agitated summer, new register, a momentum down toward the cliff below. Valley bright with fruit, the last of its kind, each calls out to be consumed. Stained red, our lips speak absolutes. We have done everything but what could deliver us. We discard the green, last berry, a pity, the last one. I have been practicing inhabiting loss. I am ready to move. I eat, shining, limited to fire, rising in the sky, the new sun. Thanks.
Yay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Iris, for your wonderful work. Just a reminder to mute yourself, everyone, as you come in. It can sometimes be hard to remember, but let's make sure to do that. I am going to do this for a second. There's my head. All right. Our next reader is Jessica Lynn Dotson, who is a poet and photographer from Baltimore. And her chapbook, Time Trials, was the 2015 Lines and Stars Mid-Atlantic Poetry Chapbook Contest winner. She was previously the art and design editor for the literary magazine Free State Review. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. I'm going to read 4 poems from Time Trials, which is mostly about spending time at the racetrack with my father when I was little, and or in his garage working on cars. So this first one's called What the Girl Gave Me. Technical difficulties. What the Girl Gave Me. I swallowed the accent with E&J, stuffed my mother's mountains in a dumpster at the first stop for gas, save for one jagged limestone pebble, traded coal ash for grease, smeared it under both eyes and drove through the night. The whole state of Virginia, I slid under a roadside motel mattress, lumpy, the far corner poking out. Outside trucks prattled down the highway. I schemed how I could disappear all the same. Marilyn was the girl I knocked up and married, some innocent thing smiling in her wedding gown, me itching in gray polyester. I pulled a swig from my coat pocket to quiet my throbbing head, emptied my wallet of crumpled bills, one telltale matchbook from the tavern, 2 matches torn from their root, none of it betraying your name. Had I stolen you, snatched you from someone's porch, some rusted truck bed? What had I bartered or pawned? Nothing. Baby girl, you were of no ties, the wave-washed shell poking underfoot, the ocean's orphan, sweetly cooing in some basket. You were the gift of low tide, the tiny thing made to make the man no woman could provide. I picked you up, threw out the matches, wrapped my palm around you, stared into the softness of your face. I ran my fingers along the edges, expecting to slice one open and spill red. You never broke, you never asked for nothing. In the ridges under my finger, mountains poured out of me. This one's called Outgrown. The world is warm enough to grow you, but not much else. The moment I wrapped you in my hands, the fear set in, not of holding you, but of you becoming too big to hold. This was simple. I could carry you, rest you in the crook of my arm, sling you on my hip, and as long as you could feel my body heat on your tiny white belly, there'd be no crying. And as you grew older, I still slung you on my hip, but the other began to ache. And you didn't want to be held as much anyway. You wanted to run around, and I knew what it was to get old. This is what I had given you, hair that everyone thought was jet black when you didn't wash it, and the desire to always be warm. You swaddle yourself in blankets at night, not knowing it's me you're yearning for. I'm in the garage, pulling out parts, straightening the sockets, doing anything I can with my hands. This is a short one about how I learned to gamble when I was little, called Church of the Penny Poker Redeemer. I learned to read a man's bluff, stacking pennies, pushing the ante forward and fanning out my cards. Some sin is acquired. When the beer was drained, I practiced being Jesus, him, the sleepy cross, stiff arms. I draped my limp wrist over his, trying redemption on. My father never let me win. I'm going to read one more from Time Trials called Nature. Night follows coyotes, night follows all. I have been the turkey grasping on today, dreading the lingering sunset, keeping one eye on the silky hologram of moon that night stenciled onto the sky and mocking. Coyotes become night. You've been that coyote. At dusk, I hide in bars, building a chain link whiskey buzz around myself, thinking you couldn't possibly sink your teeth through this drunk. But 2 a.m. comes and I dismantle from this bar stool and back into dark. Me, chicken wire scratched, you must smell the blood. Coyotes follow turkeys. There's nothing night can't slip its arm around, nothing it can't take. If I have anything left, I will it to you, to the hunt, to nature and the night. Of course, you can walk me home. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you, thank you. We'll have 2 more readers, then we'll take one more reader. Wait, let's see. Yeah, one more reader, then we'll take a short break. Then we'll have our final 3. Our next, okay, I'm counting wrong, but you'll understand. Our next reader is Diana Smith Bolton, the author of the chapbooks A Compass for My Bones and Just Universes, which was the winner of the 2016 Mid-Atlantic Chapbook Series from L&S Press. Her nonfiction, poetry, and fiction have appeared in various literary journals, including 32 poems, Beltway Poetry Quarterly, Broad Street, Gargoyle, Lines and Stars, The Pinch, and elsewhere. The founding editor of District Lit, Diana lives and works in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Diana.
Thank you, Rachel. A note from your freshman English instructor. Let me be the one you remember from college. Decades later, say, she was radiant, as though I were a 5-carat round brilliant and you a blood-handed buyer. Send holiday cards, bald signatures, a bestseller dedicated to my eyes. Your wife can't know why Diana sang out from 1001 Baby Names. I want a shoebox shrine in your closet with candles and locks of my hair. Conquer a small island nation and scatter me on beaches and cliffs. I want a monument, a national holiday. I want you to love me. So I wanted to start with that one because I was really missing teaching, and I wrote that when I was teaching because my love for my students was that irrational and crazy. So as we're gathered here tonight with a virtual reading, just want to say thanks to Rachel for organizing it, and this is just awesome to be here. So I want to read a poem that I wrote about another poetry reading experience. So it gets a little bit meta. I read a poem about a reading at a reading. So this one's called For the Bartender, and it takes place in Arlington, Virginia. For the bartender who used to tend bar on our poetry nights at the hip cafe with hand-painted backdrop. Yes, this poem is for you, who once told me that you hated poetry night, right before I read a verse about my father that grieved him before his death. But I read my poem anyway, into the quiet, and felt your eyes burn me as you wiped a glass, hating us. Now you're gone, tending bar somewhere without poems, hearing only refrigerator hum. No poetry bouncing across the ceiling. But here we read on, riding the current of those like you who distrust artists as you trust doctors, who see our works as headstones, but we still open our mouths to say, this poem is for you. And because I mentioned my dad in that last poem, I want to read kind of a new thing that I'm working on. So I'm working on a series of poems that are kind of inspired by movies that have moved me, and they're sort of meta poems about the experience of watching the movie and reflecting on maybe other times that I've seen it, and who was in my life at the time. So this poem was written about, I know it sounds strange because it's about my dad, about the movie Dirty Dancing. And there are lines throughout the poem that are just verbatim quotes from Dirty Dancing. So if you're a big Dirty Dancing fan, maybe you can spot them. It's called Hold the Frame. You'll hurt me if you don't trust me. Dirty Dancing is the movie of the night at the writer camp. It's my first time seeing it. As Patrick Swayze practices with Cynthia Rhodes in the garage, the campground owner lights off fireworks. Everyone runs outside to gasp at the red and blue explosions, closer to the ground than I've ever seen them, so low to the trees that we startle at each burst. I think of the phone call with my dad last night. A puff of smoke. Let's go back to the playhouse as Jennifer Grey watches the party. Well, my dad called last night to tell me about his eye surgery to scrape plaque off the lens. It was a good try, and he sees better than before, but he's still losing his driver's license. We can't admit it, but we're both relieved. With my father, it's complicated. At least he saw me marry. How much could he see? He walked me to the doorway. I didn't have any intention of telling him about this weekend, surrounded by writers and poets. I hear the rattle of ice in the glass, the slurring at only 10 p.m. Mississippi time. On the phone, he's telling the same joke he told last time we talked. This time, I force a laugh again. It's really me it has to do with. With these writers, the hush of the morning writing gives way to afternoon hikes and the campfire. It feels like we're naked, sliding first drafts across the table. Want to hear something crazy? My father has already died. I talked to a ghost on the telephone, his voice a creaking stare, a memory fading like the wind. Dad, I say, just think about this from your favorite child. Just slow down. But I don't hear an apology. No matter what it costs, he'll drink. I'll think about it, Nana. At camp, I had wanted to use my real grown-up name, but I can't. What's your real name, baby? I've never really owned it. And the apology? Maybe you'll hear one in your dreams. I sneaked out of the movie during the finale. As I fell asleep in the still of the night, I heard his voice. So because I read that one, I do want to read another one. This one is title and lines from Rain Man, which I had never seen before when I was writing this poem. So it's a good opportunity to finally see Rain Man. And it's called When Did You Leave? Come on, I need this. I don't remember him saying it, but I know what he wanted. In his front den, itchy carpet, his parents in the next room. You remember that day? I need anyone to talk to me. The pretense of watching a movie. I wore a halter top and skirt. If there was something to talk about, we'd be talking about it. I look out the window at my not boyfriend's car on the street and think, is this how you treat all your guests? I'd like to say I never saw him again, but all that summer, I came back to his front room, his car, his bedroom, every place. In August, I thought, I'll have a new boyfriend, new rules. I feel like I'm not supposed to be looking around here. My parents' divorce, my slumping grades, the dread. Instead, I look at the carpet. I study my breathing. I examine the dark car. I definitely know this car. My friends have been here too, each of us scared to tell the others, and we became his routine and ritual as he went through us all. What should I have done about it? Smash the window? I dreamed of stealing young me out of there, parachuting away, gone for good, but I still came back. It's over in minutes, and we're finding our clothes, smoothing hair, pretending to watch the rest of the movie as we hear his parents make popcorn. I have to be back in 2 hours to my silent house, but after, he'll be just the same. When I get home, I realize I'm not wearing my underwear. I sneak upstairs, shower, climb under the covers. I call the day after, but he doesn't answer the phone. That summer, we come to have an understanding. We're just talking as teenagers do, no tidy label, no boyfriend. Young me, take your time. Nobody can take that away. That long summer will end in August. And then I just want to read one more. And this poem that I'm going to read. So today actually is the 14-year anniversary of meeting my husband. So yay, happy 14 years. So I wrote this poem called Flying Over the Alps from an airplane. Below, the peaks go on and on forever, each spike thrusting alone into the sky. My mother bought a print like this, except of water, the waves cresting in violent seas during her stormy divorce. The jagged waters looked fake to me then, but here they are, below, in rock. My husband presses his hand on mine. We study the rough points, the proof that things can change. What feels like rock today may someday churn like water. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diana. Thank you, thank you. Jonathan Lewis is the author of Babylon, which won our 2017 Mid-Atlantic Chapbook Contest, a recipient of a DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities Fellowship, and the DC winner of the Golden Haiku Contest. He is the editor of a literary magazine, The Federal Poet, and hosts the annual Poets Corner reading at the Literary Hill Book Fest. He's also a judge for Washington, D.C.'s Spelling Bee Finals. As you may have guessed, he lives in Washington, D.C. Please welcome Johnson.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much, both for organizing this event, but also for publishing our work. I'm sure this is true for everyone. It meant it was an incredibly meaningful thing to have our poems published in a chapbook. So thank you so much. I'm going to read 3 new poems that I've been working on tonight. And then after that, I'm going to read one poem from Babylon. First poem is Mornings in Barcelona. Each day in Gracia, we wake in sunlight, the rolling metal doors yet to be risen, the patchwork of graffiti still wet from last night's rain. In the cafe next door, where the smell of fresh bread permeates the alley, we down espressos and pan con chocolat, listen to the old women gossip, and watch the office workers in their suits and skirts file in with greetings and go forth with coffee. There is the chill of October in the curved streets, pools in the cobblestones that gather the light, and our mouths are full of chocolate in these numbered, brilliant days with their infinite plans. The next poem I'm going to read. So sometime during the COVID year, my high school biology teacher passed away. His name was Ernie Lavroni, and he was kind of young, so it was a shock to a lot of his former students, including me. And interestingly, I went to school I grew up in Los Angeles, but he was originally from Maryland. So this poem is dedicated to him. It's called Zoom Memorial. We visit from wherever we are, the front seat of a car, a kitchen with an off-screen child, a window in Glen Burnie with elm trees swaying. This is a mosaic formed from the lives you've reached. We look to each other to glimpse moments of you, building this space, filling it with places you've called home, the students you've inspired, memories of your easy laugh, your giving heart. When each speaker's story ends, they look up or look away, as if to see your face just off screen. And this third poem has been a work in progress for a number of years now. I went through, when I was much younger, I went through a brief Kerouac phase, and I had been reading the book Dharma Bums, and I came across a typo that no one seemed to know about. If you've read Kerouac, you know he uses pseudonyms to refer to his friends. And at one point, the character Jaffe, who is the poet Gary Snyder, is just written as Gary. And I wasn't sure if that was a goof, if Kerouac just wrote his friend's name by mistake, or if the editor got it wrong. And so I digged into it for some time, and I figured out the editor got it wrong. So anyway, that inspired this poem. It's still a work in progress. It's called Gary's Shack, which is the reference in the book to Gary Snyder. The donut shack is closed today. Masts are swaying, sunset flicks. Several blocks away, a plaque marks the old Gallery 6, where Kerouac propelled them all forward. Flaneurs and authors alike, Ginsberg howling, Rexroth hosting. Perhaps afterwards they wandered drunk against the lights of the city. At the Palace of Fine Arts, they would have skipped through the colonnade, hitchhiking back to North Beach, finally collapsing in the ancient Raton throne at Vesuvio. Just a bunch of Dharma bums. But the editor goofed. Perhaps Snyder smiled to see his name so changed the same. Back here in the marina, the gallery long dead, today there are delicate ducklings paddling past the sailboats like drunk poets in brackish water. They eye the tourists and tech folk with downy suspicions, while enormous bat rays glide beneath their tiny kicking legs. To an oblivious duckling, wide-eyed like Jack, this is just another swimming hole, no different from the ponds they know. But this pond has moving shadows and a path to wild waters. Venture further, ducklings, past the seawall, into the sunken grottos. Hitchhike or train hop your way to the deep Pacific canyons. Hear the mad jazz of the humpback. Sleep in kelp forests. Fight the chimera. Get behind the ranges. Go, go, go. And this last poem, so of all the poems in Babylon, there's one that means the most to me, and it's called Grandma. I wrote it in honor of my grandmother, who passed away about 8 years ago around this time of year. So it means a lot to be reading it right now. Heavy feet sweep through Hampstead streets, searching for a younger you. Your body is in Los Angeles, dissipating in hospice, but your mind might still be here, peeking through the archways. The last time we spoke, it was all about your childhood, when you were a schoolgirl giggling with her friends before the long shadows of war. Now I too am here in London, stuck, and cannot reach you in time. Rounding every corner, expecting the face from a photo, a spectral girl in her coat and cap skipping across the heath. When you appear, I'll walk beside you the whole way. You will not be afraid. So please tell me that you made it back, that I had found you, grasped your hand, and we took these last steps together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you, thank you. Let's take a 5-minute break. So let's return at 7:40. And we'll have our next 3 poets. Thanks. Hey, everyone. I don't know if you guys can hear it saying recording in progress, but it's pretty good, pretty good. That's our secret poet, secret surprise poet. Welcome back. We are going to now have the folks who were published from 2018 through 2020 read. We're going to start out with Alexa Poteet, who is a writer from Washington, D.C. with a master's degree in poetry from the Johns Hopkins University and an undergraduate English degree from the University of Notre Dame. Her poetry has appeared in Read Magazine, Pen Union, Sixfold, Lines and Stars, and New Verse News, among others. She was a semifinalist for SUNY's 2015 Palmanock Poetry Award and a 2012 Pushcart Prize nominee. Formerly, she served as poetry editor for JMWW, and she won the 2018 Mid-Atlantic Chapbook Contest, and Carnivores came out in early 2019. Please welcome Alexa.
Thanks so much for having us, Rachel. It's so nice to be here with our Lines and Stars family. Forgive any errant bedtime screams, please. I have 3 children under 5 adjusting to daylight savings time upstairs. I'm going to take Rachel up on the opportunity to read some new work. So I'm going to read 2 new poems and then 2 greatest hits. My first poem is fitting because the subject matter came about as a direct result of getting my chapbook published with Lines and Stars. I'm also an old lady, unlike everyone else. I like print. It's called I Saw You Bought My Book on the Royalties List. Since you were looking for a poem about you, here it is. I would have raised my life to make it fit with yours, worn the ashes like skin. So I'm relieved you let me go. I'm glad these are children I could only make with someone else. Their heart-shaped chins, just my husband's, who listens to me even when he doesn't hear what I am saying. I feel ease this body you knew has become soft, a slumped dessert roll free of your gaze. But alone, with a frosty glass of Shannon on a Saturday in New York, I admit, I still wonder about you. It only took 11 years to get far away enough to wonder, to know you were a life ring I didn't want to pull back in. These babies with their cosmos curls, and my love, whose warm bald head fits between my breasts like a planet, are a galaxy I cannot gamble. But I suppose I want to say it to your face. I never want to see you again. Just to see how you have become old, and me too, and feel whether you'd like to burn it all down for me so I can put the match out on my tongue one last time. I joke at readings that I don't like to write poems about my children because I can't imagine who wants to hear poems about the children of others. But this is a child adjacent poem. You can forgive me in advance. It's called In Defense of Wildness. Only now, wadding up toilet paper, doubling up and wiping the crevices of child after child after child, my own, but still, could I have this thought? That perhaps I missed some ring of holiness in the sloppiness of my youth. I recall one winter at 22, where I drank enough sojatinis at the local Korean restaurant that I transubstantiated, became tears. They did not tell me then that to have so much time to feel is a blessing. Each blistering phone call or half-bitten kiss a rosary bead that wards off growing old. I recall one bender where I slept in my November boots, too complex with their zippers for the effervescence of my fingers. Did you know your first apartment is a chapel? Drinking juice nude in the fridge doorway with a gazelle lean body, who is to say what drink is holy water? For a moment, let us speak in tongues. Forget my present incarnation, the milk-curdled mouths pooling. Don't you know I was wild once? That rush of air through the open car windows, a bead, a book, a call to prayer. And then my two greatest hits are from Carnivores, my collection. So I'll read the title poem. Carnivores. I would be good for eating, I said, as we ate barbecue on the deck. The cooking smoke thick in my hair as mosquitoes too close to the fire singed to ash. I imagined my tri-trip fried over fennel, the fingernail you'd use to work my white gristle from your teeth, pearlescent as silver skin strung between ribs. Don't be silly, you said, holding my wrist to lick my sauce salty palm, then smiling, turning away to suck on a buttery bone. And the last one is for my brother who passed away when I was a kid. It's called Kneading. For one full year, our mother did not change your sheets. The beds came paired, twins, though you were younger. At night, I lay awake in the quilted mirror of the place you died, would pull back your comforter and find the tiniest stem of a grape you ate. Your smell like raw dough ever weaker. I pulled the covers back tight to keep you in. 1 year to the night, I walked up our parents' street to a house that belonged to your memory. The street lamps, orange as planets in a line, extending far beyond the silhouetted stairs. By the door, I smelled it, the creamy tang of yeast that meant a neighbor baking bread. I imagined it, young and warm, growing in the bowl. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you so much. So much, Alexa. Carrie Greenlaw is a poet and artist residing on the north side of Pittsburgh. A graduate of Vassar College and Chatham University, her work has been featured in Mask and Spectacle, River and South Review, Inscape, and other publications, and she is a Best of the Dent nominee. Her debut chapbook, Dark Garnet, was published by L&S Press in 2019. She lives low and lives slow. Welcome, Carrie.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for arranging this. This is such a cool opportunity to go and see a face to all of these books that I've read. The first poem I wanted is about cooking black-eyed peas, and I cooked black-eyed peas today, so I thought that might be a good fit. It's called Hop. Hop peas pour like a hard promise, a pile of white chits in the faucet's long fist pummeling down. Flood these wrinkled stones and behold in stillness. A breathing field of clams thread bubbles with Osiris's unblinking eye. Who stitched this miracle? Who saw irises and called them coins? A few hours of fire in the brazen bowl, and their dingy flanks will surface from the soup of dishwater. The ink of oracles casts forth to common ash. We carve victories on the graves of the luckless. Next one's called Refraction. The sugar maple on Sunderland Street soaks up floods of fall light and beams a wild ambering blaze so bold the other trees grow gold veins in envy. This is a trick of refraction. How noon hits the house behind yours and the whole side glares up and floats through the window like a skim of white milk spilling into this dark room where you and I are wasting the morning, passing our own imperfect light from hand to hip to mouth to skin to skin. And next, I was looking through my poems. I haven't been doing a lot of writing over the course of the past year and a half, which I imagine some other people are probably in a similar position. But I found some blackout poems that I've been working on just to kind of keep things going, keep myself fresh. And I wanted to share them. I've never shared these before, so these are just some various blackout poems from found books. Why doesn't the guarantee materialize? You know that predictions fail, fortune well expected, left out some facts. It is about what you really are, rising. Needless, I do not find the negative a useful guide or a kind friend. Creatures at the bottom shine deep in darkness and survive. Their bodies are broad highways and beautiful things. All creatures have an inner process, a cavity, and blood, and sex, mingling, good and poor. The rest died. This was an enormous change. Lagoons, mutations. Water forced to stay vulnerable, safety in skeleton making. And then I had two more poems I wanted to share. This one is called Phosphorus Makes Glow but Eats Bones Like a Hag. We've spent too long in my hut. Winter pulls up to peer in the windows, but I am Baba Yaga, rag mad, clutching bowls of salt. I knit myself a new maidenhead with all this curdled milk. The house stinks of it, this house without men. Here, knobby cats drool, flee dirt dreams, while the baby cries around a bitten thumb and wets her pants again. She howls and I snarl back, feral mouths falling open like the unwashed throats of curs. We always end in tears. Her thin leak of snot is asinine, but paints the door of future comfort. In slanted afternoon, I swig vinegar and eat handfuls of boys. Mule-faced, she leaves a golden inch in the bowl behind my chair. The dim ceiling perfumes with girl piss, cat piss, and my fevering skin. The dead can't haunt me. My brain is already bristling with 1,000 eyeless needles of porcupine fur. I curl around baby until the last black dagger scratches my forehead, and we wait for the thaw. And then I have one more. I think this is like probably the only poem I've written in the past year. But I like it a lot, and it's called Totems. A kid will pray to anyone. Inspector Gadget, Captain Crunch. I undress in a spleen of unicorns and spend weeks supplicating the gremlin of a sun-dried toad. Please make me grow strangely. Drown the baby in his bath. Shoot cancer into every bone and send me to Disney World. I'm high on the vinyl of a tiny snapshot coin purse, while on my wall, a dolphin forever plummets into an orange pool with aqua water, or a yellow pool with teal water, or hangs sunbeaten in a crinkled sky. Don't confuse this for the chalk of nostalgia. Perot masks swarm sticky edges, but down a cousin's dark hallway, see the glow of a white Persian kitten, the mound of rose thorns, eyes jugged shut with wept rhinestones. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie. Really wonderful. Last but certainly not least, Joellen Craft lives in Salisbury, Maryland. Her poems recently appeared or are forthcoming in the Laurel Review, the Fourth River, the Penn Review, Radar Poetry, and the Collagist, who nominated her poems for Pushcart Prize. Her chapbook, The Quarry, won our 2020 Mid-Atlantic Chapbook Prize, and she teaches English at Warwick Community College. Welcome, Joellen.
Hi, thank you, Rachel. Thanks to all of you. It's wonderful to hear poetry. It's so much more fun than what else I would be doing tonight. Children, grading, all of that stuff. This is my little book. I'm going to read a couple poems from it. Thank you to Rachel for this reading and for publishing the book. The first poem I'm reading is called Terrain. Like terrain, like geography. That's a weird word, terrain. Because I've had no word from my friend on the other coast, her unborn child lives and dies and grows monstrous. The future shape changed in silence, as when the woods behind my home were coated overnight in snow. So I saw what looked flat all fall was slope. That silent terrain, the ground pushed up when fear moves against a land that shifts. You and I met on a mountain, its skull of snow covering rocks and brush, no trail in sight, uniform height, our shared perspective. A tidal wave's simple looming, our impossible children miles from where we left them, asleep in the sand, choosing one shell, then another. The next poem I'm reading is called Frame. This is a poem that came to me because I used to drive 2 hours a day to get to my job, and I drove through rural North Carolina where houses are literally like just falling in on themselves. And I had a favorite one because, you know, you have your favorite decrepit house, and I wrote a poem for it. It's called Frame. Once, though long abandoned, the house in the house remained possible. Now the sides are black. Now the front porch opens to hall. Now the cord roof and eaves lurch toward clay, the same red clay as always. Red skin of the earth, above which these slow changed features. Here's where you would appear, so I would appear to allow it. The past, after all, a structure like any other, changed too little between each pass to be recognized as wholly uninhabitable by anyone. Sorry, I look so spooky. It's like, I know it seems bright in my room to me, but I look all moody over here. So Alexa, I think it's hilarious that you were like, no one wants to hear poems about other people's kids, because that's all I'm writing these days. So I have a couple of those. They're actually poems where I imagine that there's no like wiping of butts in it though, but there's other stuff. So I think that stuff totally belongs in poems though. So I say, do it up, do it up. These are poems where instead of imagining my children dying, which is I think what parents do, I imagine myself dying at random moments. They're not macabre or upsetting poems. They're just, you know, they're all called My Sudden Death. So this is My Sudden Death collection, Election Day 2020. She toes the neat row of beached horseshoe crabs, runs past shards she thinks could spell her name, each shell's shape formed by breach. The ocean's matter-of-fact shush on the shells as it combs through what's left of those homes, involuntary as her body, the night she woke sick and heaved against me. Here, she learns she can shatter most shells with hand, foot, shovel. I don't stop her. I, who have imagined shushing her with a hand, a foot, a shovel. Isn't it normal to line death up, possess remains, process how we can, what hugeness offers? And where did I put it? My distress at her calm, as her body pulled the dream she woke from between us. I have one more of these My Sudden Death poems to read, and it is called My Sudden Death, Pushing the Stroller to the Lake. Canoeing here, years from now, you will appear half in, half out of this lake, where I've imagined you drowned so many afternoons. Held by canoe, you will lie back below the surface, the lake to an embrace of your displacement. We've come to see goslings push through thick reeds, a bounty after last spring when the city poked a hole in every egg, in every nest. After your birth, I wept reading, found beside the bones of infants, playful clay mugs shaped with nose spouts and ear handles to save orphaned newborns or wean, the porous insides traced with milk, sheep, cow, goat, and bacteria, deadly in the clay mug's rabbit ears or silly chin. I have tried to give you what my body cannot. I have tried to form a vessel you will keep near and fill with what you need to hold what seems a lake from above, a face straight on, as I held yours, imagining you tip into yourself. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you so much, Joellen. Let us all unmute ourselves and give the poets a nice hand, a nice round of applause, if we can do it. Yay. So wonderful. Such talented human beings that I am lucky to know and share the work of. I wanted to say that all of the chapbooks are available on lionsandstars.com. And if you go to the LNS Press tab, you can purchase any of those from 2014 through 2020. Also, I'm hoping to have some real life readings in the not too distant future. We used to have a reading here in Baltimore at this lovely spot called Atomic Books, and they haven't quite opened up their back room for events yet, but I think it's imminent. So when we can do that, I really want to do that. That would be great. And maybe some other physical spaces here in town too, and or in DC. I would love to get back into the swing of having regular readings. And don't worry, Carrie, I, like you and everyone, have written very little, and my brain does not work very well over the past year and a half. So thank you again. This makes my heart sing to see all of you guys read and to see all of your friends and family attending. This is also recorded, so if anyone wants a recording, get in touch. You can find my email on the Lions and Stars website. I'll also put this on our social media pages and you guys can share it at will. Thinking about renewal and winters and springs, but also the ways in which winters have springs in them and springs have winters in them. I wanted to read one more from Mr. Kuzer, who I just love so much. Still alive, 25 or more years after dealing with a serious illness. And for those who weren't here at the very beginning, this Winter Morning Walks is a collection of really small poems. He wrote one every day as he was recuperating from cancer in the late 90s and sent them in postcard form to his buddy. So I'm going to read the one from March 18th. March 18th, gusty and warm. I saw the season's first bluebird this morning, 1 month ahead of its scheduled arrival. Lucky I am to go off to my cancer appointment, having been given a bluebird, and for a lifetime, having been given this world. Thank you, everyone. Stay in touch, write things, don't write things, sleep, rest your mind and soul, and see you sometime soon. Bye.